In this video, I want to save you approximately 5 hours of reading and give you one of the biggest concepts that I use on a daily basis, and it came from a really great book. The book is Extreme Ownership. This is kind of detailing through ownership principles through the lens of folks that were leading SEAL missions in high combat zones. And so the concept I want to cover is called OODA Loop. It's an acronym. It stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. And it was illustrated under this concept. He was leading a team. They were in the middle of Iraq in a highly contested area, and they're on the rooftop. And they had enemy fire happening, and there was just fire happening everywhere. It kind of felt a little bit chaotic. And maybe that feels like that in business. Things are going wrong. It feels like they're coming from all directions. And the initial response inside of us is to panic, to feel that overwhelm. Maybe you wake up today and you felt that stress. Maybe you're on YouTube trying to get a little bit of an escape, but this happens commonly in business. There's all sorts of variable inputs. Sometimes we feel like we're winning. A lot of times the stress comes when we feel like we're losing. And in that space, with the OODA loop, we choose not to panic, but to find a precision action to take. And so the first thing is observe. And he looked around and recognized that fire was coming from all sorts of angles. And instead of deciding too quickly, instead of acting responsively, you should do a call out and understand where everybody's at. And they're trying to identify and orient themselves. Okay, I'm at this building. Left of me is this other building. Three buildings down. It looks like this, has this rooftop, whatever it is. Because in a war zone, you don't exactly have maps or Google Maps and geopins to know exactly where everybody's at. You're kind of reliant on your ability to describe your surroundings and where you're standing. And so in this process, he took the time to observe. What do we come with? Orient. Prioritize decision-making. Consider the information and consider like the relative space that you're in. And so in that process of observe and orient for him in this battlefield, they realized what they thought was enemy fire that they were going to go and attack and obliterate would have actually become friendly fire. There was someone else who was mispositioning themselves or misdescribing where they were, what building they were in. And so with that, observe, orient, gather the information, take the time to understand, then contextualize the information. Take the time to arrange what is priority, where is even the possible of reasonable decisions you should make, and then decide, which is like be decisive, lead, trust the information, make an actual change, and then act. And so that act is actually doing it. But the process here of observe, orient, decide, and act, like I mentioned, is something I do every single day. And so here's a practical example of what the OODA loop looks like for us and what I think it could look like for you, because I find this commonly, especially in business, where you're bombarded with information, especially in times when you're losing, it feels like you should panic. And instead, maybe approach it in this way. So our observe is daily looking at the metrics, taking the time to actually look at the stats, the scoreboard. We start off meetings this way. Oftentimes, this sort of objective, number-based presentation of where we're at and how things are going is really helpful. And we can feel the pain of a negative customer feedback or something, kind of an initiative failing. But if we're not looking at the data, then we're actually acting on anecdotes, single stories, potentially outliers to the true system at hand. And so we want to observe real data. Then we want to orient, look at the data through the lens of what creates real constraint. From like a marketing throughput in the business, like there's a chain of events that are in hierarchy. For instance, for your business growing in marketing, people need to know you exist. Then you need to know they exist, right? So they need to see you, get awareness, get impressions. Then you get leads, they opt in, they become a name, email, phone number in your database system. Then they become familiar, like they're interested in the problem. Now they're familiar, they open your emails, they read stuff, they might book a call, they want to learn more, and then they, address objections or become a customer. In that throughput, you're looking at that on a daily basis. Like, okay, what were our impressions or views? What were our leads? How many new contacts did we get added to the CRM? How many booked appointments did we get? They moved closer. They gathered more value. They opted into more lead magnets or whatever it might mean. Watch time on other nurture videos there. And then conversion, like how many customers did you get? But if you walk in and you just feel the pain of, I did not get enough customers, that fourth piece in the throughput in the system there, you might accidentally just feel panic and start, acting kind of frantically. Instead, if you look at the data and you realize, my gosh, we have 0 impressions. What happened here? Our ads billing failed, and so we stopped running ads. And so it didn't matter that our sales didn't happen. It was actually a product of something further up the chain that was the actual constraint on the business. We want to observe and then orient, contextualize the data into that system there, and then decide, make a choice. I think indecision is just a complete virus in entrepreneurial growth because there's no guaranteed right way to do it. And so it's in the process of deciding and acting. So in the decision there, you align all parties, you communicate the why behind the decision or the action you're going to take. And then in your action, you get to take action on there. I don't know if you felt this way before, where I've decided and I didn't act for a long time. I knew what I should do and I just delayed actually doing it. In this loop, in this cycle, when we act this way, we look at our numbers, we contextualize what's the real constraint, we decide on what initiative we're going to take, we get buy-in with other people around us, and then we actually take action on it. We test a new hypothesis, we change one of the variables in the system there. Now, when you come back to observe, you have typically new data, a change of information, and you can repeat the cycle over and over again. So hopefully this was helpful. This is a really incredible, compelling book, but that's the main concept that I reuse on a day-to-day basis, this OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. And especially when things feel chaotic, which entrepreneurship and growing a business often does, this is a framework I can fall back on, align the team around, and stabilize an otherwise hectic growth journey. If you like this video, this is the kind of things that I want to bring to you behind the scenes. Let me know in the comments, what else would you love me to talk about from our process of growing a business, impacting thousands of folks? You know, we've seen a lot. We've helped over 5,000 people generate over $100 million. And it's little framers like this lived every single day that create that kind of outsized output.